Start by taking a look at the day's headlines. Kim Jong-un to Busan. It seemed like wild speculation when reports initially surfaced, but following positive talks between Seoul and Washington at the UN General Assembly, officials are saying Kim could in fact come here for a forum in November. He described it as perfect, but Democrats have jumped on the transcript of a call between US President Donald Trump and Ukraine's new president. They say Trump prodded the foreign leader to investigate one of his biggest political rivals. Plus, Beijing opens a huge new airport dubbed the Starfish. We'll tell you more about this latest addition to the Chinese capital's sprawling transport infrastructure. So, could North Korean leader Kim Jong-un travel to South Korea's southern city of Busan in November? The possibility has been floated before, but new comments from the top office suggest there is a decent chance Kim will make what would be an unprecedented trip to South Korea for an ASEAN forum in a few weeks from now. Now, Seoul believes a visit by Kim would spur denuclearization talks with the United States and hopefully revitalize inter-Korean relations that have turned rather sour in recent months. These latest developments come as President Moon Jae-in departed New York after a few days at the UN General Assembly. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
South Korea's presidential office on the same page as the nation's intelligence agency that North Korea's Kim Jong-un may in fact visit South Korea for the ASEAN Special Summit in the port city of Busan in November. The backdrop of that, the ongoing discussions between North Korea and the U.S. and between the two Koreas, as well as the National Intelligence Service's claim this week that said the North's leader Kim Jong-un could cross the border again. The prospective nuclear talks between Pyongyang and Washington are feeding the presidential office's optimism, but there may need to be talks between the two Koreas in order to make that trip actually happen. Looking back at President Moon's brief trip to New York and meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, the presidential office reportedly sees the restarting of the Korean peace process as a major outcome.
제3차 북미 정상회담이 열린다면 아마도 한반도의 비핵화의 새로운 질서가 만들어지는 아주 세계사적인 대전환 이렇게 업적이 될 것이라고 믿습니다.
In addition, President Moon added to the peace blueprint during his keynote speech at the UN General Assembly with his plan to turn one of the most heavily guarded regions in the world into a global peace zone.
유엔과 모든 회원국들에게 한반도의 허리를 가로지르는 비무장지대를 국제평화지대로 만들자는 제안을 하고자 합니다.
One shortfall in what was generally seen as a fruitful trip was the lack of progress in relations with Japan. The presidential office reportedly said the ongoing under-the-table talks with Japan have yet to lead anywhere. So it looks like the embittered relations between the two neighbors won't go away for the time being. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, New York.
On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York on Wednesday, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa sat down with her Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. The two diplomats discussed denuclearizing the Korean peninsula and continuing their cooperation for another round of North Korea-US talks so they can resume as early as possible. An official at Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry says Wang, who visited Pyongyang this month, shared the results of that visit with Kang. The two sides also agreed upon bolstering bilateral ties, including more economic cooperation. They also shared views on the US THAAD anti-missile system here in South Korea. The White House says the importance of trilateral security cooperation between Seoul, Tokyo and Washington was discussed during a summit between US President Donald Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Following the summit on Wednesday, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, the White House explained that President Trump and Abe discussed a whole range of issues, including Iran and North Korea. The US had expressed deep concerns and disappointment following Seoul's recent decision to terminate its military intelligence sharing pact with Tokyo. That happened just last month. And President Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe have signed what Trump has labelled the first stage of a phenomenal new trade agreement between the two countries. Under this deal, Japan is set to open up its market to American agricultural goods worth billions of dollars. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
Japan has agreed to open up its market to $7 billion worth of American agricultural products. U.S. President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced the initial details of an emerging trade deal between the two countries on Wednesday in New York on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Explaining the Japanese tariffs will now be significantly lower or eliminated for U.S. products, President Trump stressed the deal will greatly help American farmers.
Under the market access agreement that we're announcing today, Japan will open new markets to approximately $7 billion in American agricultural products. Japanese tariffs will now be significantly lower or eliminated entirely for U.S. beef, pork, wheat, cheese, corn, wine, and so much more. This is a huge victory for America's farmers, ranchers, and growers, and that's very important to me.
Nearly 90% of U.S. food and agricultural products will receive duty-free or reduced tariff access to Japan, while many products that are gaining new access, including wine and cheese, will face tariffs that phase out over several years. Abe described the deal a win-win for both sides.
One of the highlights of this new agreement is that under this agreement, we together will be able to bring benefits to everyone in Japan as well as in the United States, namely consumers, producers, and workers.
Following the signing ceremony between the two leaders, the U.S. Trade Representative's office explained that automobiles were not included in the agreement, as Tokyo wanted further discussion on the matter. It also said a wide range of Japanese industrial goods, from machine tools to musical instruments, will see reduced or eliminated tariffs in the U.S. market. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, the much-awaited transcript of a controversial phone call between US President Donald Trump and his counterpart in Ukraine has been released by the White House. In it, Trump asks if the Ukrainian leader can look into Democratic hopeful Joe Biden and his son over certain corruption allegations. The US president has labeled it a witch hunt as Democrats continue to push for his impeachment. Lee Kang-in reports.
According to a White House memorandum of a July phone call between the leaders of the United States and Ukraine that was released on Wednesday, Trump asked President Vladimir Zelensky to look into former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter's involvement with Burisma Holdings, a private Ukrainian gas firm. The transcript revealed that the two presidents talked for about 30 minutes, and Trump's request to look into Biden was the only time he mentioned the former vice president. Democrats claim Trump's call was to solicit a foreign leader to dig up dirt on a potential rival in the 2020 presidential election. They have also expressed concerns about why Trump reportedly decided to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine a week before he spoke with Zelensky. Trump, however, maintains that the call was perfect and there was no quid pro quo. With the latest allegations against President Trump, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced Wednesday that the Democrats were launching an official inquiry into impeaching the president.
And this week, the president has admitted to asking the president of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the president's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
President Trump spoke to reporters on Wednesday for the first time since Pelosi's move, calling for transparency on the matter involving Biden and his son, and the Democrats' latest efforts nothing more than a hoax.
It's all a hoax, folks. It's all a big hoax. And the sad thing about this hoax is that we work so hard with all of these countries, and I mean, really hard. I've been up from early in the morning till late in the evening and meeting with different countries, all for the good of our country, and the press doesn't even cover all of this.
Speaking to reporters alongside President Trump in New York on Wednesday, Zelensky said nobody can put pressure on him because he's the president of an independent state. Zelensky also added that he didn't pressure any prosecutors or other officials in Ukraine about looking into the Bidens. Lee Kang-in, Arirang News.
Now, lawmakers at South Korea's National Assembly will kick off a 4-day question and answer session this afternoon with top government officials. During the 4 days, rival lawmakers will be quizzing the officials on a whole range of topics, from politics and diplomatic affairs to economic issues. Today's session will focus on political matters. Likely to take centre stage will be newly appointed Justice Minister Jo Guk, as a probe is underway into his family over corruption allegations. The Conservative opposition has vowed to use the session to highlight that Jo is not fit for the job, while the ruling party is likely to defend him and question him on his ideas for reforming the prosecution. In economic news, South Korea's consumer sentiment rose in September, reversing 4 consecutive months on the slide. According to the Bank of Korea, the consumer sentiment index recorded 96.9 for this month. That's up more than 4 points from August. The central bank attributed the rising sentiment to higher stock prices and the government's expansionary economic policies. But the figure remains below the 100 threshold, meaning there are more pessimists than optimists about the local economy. Now, young South Korean soccer star Lee Kang-in has scored his debut goal for his Spanish club Valencia in his first full start for the team. Lee, who won the Golden Ball at this year's Under-20 World Cup, netted Valencia's third goal against Getafe in Wednesday night's La Liga match. Despite drawing 3-3 in the end, the 18-year-old's goal left a big impression on the Valencia fans, as it makes him the youngest foreign scorer in Valencia's history. He also became just the second South Korean player to score in La Liga after Park Ju-young. Shifting gears now, the Seoul Metropolitan Government is laying on a special expo for cultural centres around South Korea. Various elements that represent the country's unique regional cultures are on display for visitors to check out. Our Kim Bo-kyung went to check it out herself and filed this report.
25 cultural centers from Seoul and 22 centers from around the country gathered at Gwanghwamun Square on Wednesday to promote local folk cultures and traditional performances as part of the 2019 Seoul Cultural Center EXPO. Dongnaegu Cultural Center from the port city Busan displayed its Dongnae crane dance. The dance portrays the elegant movements of the cranes that inhabit the area. Gohung Cultural Center from Jeollanam-do Province showed off its paper money dance. Recorded as one of Korean intangible cultural assets, this dance is usually seen in Korea's southwestern Honam region. Shamans in the region would dance with dozens of pieces of paper while praying for the dead to rest in peace. And a team from Suncheong, Jeollabuk-do Province, performed the marching song Okcheon Village Daechita.
Okcheon Village Daechita uses Korean wind and string instruments, and this marching song usually led the King's Parade in the past. The audience could find it meaningful to see how the old custom of the Goryeo dynasty is reproduced.
There were also plenty of activities for visitors to get involved in, such as making lucky bags used on Seollal, the Lunar New Year, or making shoes out of hanji, a type of traditional Korean paper. There was also a center where calligraphers write quotations of people who fought for Korean independence. As well as attracting locals, the festival gave foreigners a chance to see less well-publicized aspects of traditional Korean culture.
It's interesting because all of these shamanistic rituals and shamanistic culture, which you do not find in Asian countries anymore today, and as a Western guy, I do not even know that it exists or existed.
People could also take part in traditional Korean folk games or playing a traditional Korean drum.
These performances give people a taste of different cultural traditions of each corner of the country and will perhaps inspire them to take a trip and explore new parts of Korea. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Ahead of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, Beijing has opened an enormous new airport to serve the Chinese capital, giving it 2 international airports now. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Kim Da-mi. Da-mi, tell us more about this airport then and just how significant it is, not only for Beijing, but for China as a whole.
Mark, China's newly built Beijing Daxing International Airport officially opened on Wednesday. Chinese President Xi Jinping announced the official opening, and in fact, the Phoenix landmark is one of his centenary goals for the rejuvenation of his country.
Our republic is constructed brick by brick. We have the confidence and the ambition to forge ahead.
The new Starfish Airport spans 700,000 square meters. That's around 98 soccer fields. Located in the southern part of Beijing, the new hub is aimed at taking pressure off the overcrowded current Beijing Capital International Airport in the northeastern suburb. The $62 billion project was designed by Iraqi architect Zaha Hadid, who is also well known as the designer of Dongdaemun Design Plaza here in Seoul. Its current 4 runways will be expanded to 7 in the near future. Beijing is expected to welcome 100 million people every year, becoming one of the busiest transport hubs in the world, along with South Korea's main gateway, Incheon International Airport. Despite European efforts to diffuse tensions between the U.S. and Iran, Washington is imposing sanctions on Chinese companies for buying Iranian oil. Speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly on Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington's decision was in response to violations of unilateral U.S. sanctions. Pompeo said the sanctions target 6 Chinese companies and their 5 CEOs. He added that his country will intensify its efforts to educate countries and companies on the risk of doing business with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its entities, stressing that punishment is inevitable if they ignore their warnings. Washington's sanctions come as France pushes last-minute efforts to arrange a meeting at the UN General Assembly between leaders of the U.S. and Iran.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information useful for your everyday life, whether you are in Korea or somewhere else around the world, perhaps due to make a visit here. Today we're going to focus on culture like we do every Thursday. To explain what's going on in South Korea right now, I'm glad to say I'm joined by the ever-dashing Won Jung-hwan in the studio. Jung-hwan, you always bring in something interesting, so what do you have for us today?
Something cultural, something sport. I'm here today to introduce you a global music festival held right here in Seoul, where you can just relax, listen to music, eat, drink, and make friends.
Sounds good.
Asia's most trendy indie music festival is now in town for 4 days. It's known as Zandari Festa, and the festival lineup is full of emerging artists from all over the world, playing range of musical styles from rock to electronica. The festival just kicked off today in Hongdae, a place that symbolizes the heart of young and independent culture of Korea. The annual event has gotten bigger every year since it began in 2012, and this year, more than 100 groups of musicians from 20 countries will perform to indie music lovers. The festivals will take place simultaneously at several live clubs and concert halls around the Hongdae area. And this French musician who played his music in Busan a few days ago, is looking forward to meet Korean indie music lovers.
The first show that we played, the only show that we played, was really welcoming, and the energy that was given by the audience was really different from what we experience in France. Sometimes I'd play anywhere I would be invited to play, because anything that would take me out of my comfort zone, would make me, I guess,
However,
better,
just performing in
at what
front
I
of
do.
the audience is not the only reason these artists are here. Some musicians will be showcasing what they've got to music industry professionals, known as delegates, to help them expand their career to other global markets.
A really interesting event because it's both a music market, like a buying and selling place, but also a really amazing music festival. And I know a lot of the presenters that were here last year found some great talent. There's lots of tours, so hopefully that continues, and hopefully I can be a part of making something else happen.
The delegate, who has brought 9 Korean artists and bands to perform in Australia for the past few years, says he's always looking forward to someone unique and something cultural.
Trying to find something that feels unique, something that feels like you don't see it every day, something that gets I generally go for quite high energy stuff and stuff that gets a crowd going, but also something that feels uniquely Korean as well.
So as well as impressing the fans, a lot of the bands there will be trying to impress that gentleman there, because you could potentially get them a record deal or something. But this music festival then is not just for the fans. It really is kind of a networking situation, in so much as it gives the chance for international musicians to come over to Korea and show Korean audiences what they've got.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, it is for the artist as well. So it's quite hard to actually get into the festival.
Yeah.
I've been told that more than 700 artists and bands have applied for this year, but only selected amount of small numbers of groups have made the final cut.
Okay.
Of course, all of them of dreaming of furthering their music careers. In fact, to introduce you a few successful cases from Zandari Festa, some talented young Korean artists were invited to Liverpool Sound City, one of the biggest music festivals in the world. And also, vice versa, a Hungarian band who received a lot of praise last year's festival, Mongols and the Magnet, was invited to Korea's DMZ Peace Train Music Festival just a couple of months ago. So why not come out to Hongdae this weekend to enjoy some indie music while watching some up-and-coming music stars who could lead the indie music industry in the future?
Well, given that I live within about 3 minutes walk from Hongdae, I suppose I have no excuse but to go and check out some of the bands there, and it will give me a good excuse to get out the house for an hour or two over the weekend. How long is this festival going to be happening in Hongdae?
4 days until Sunday.
Okay,
from today. Yeah.
Great. So if you want to find out more information about that, ticket information and more, you can go to the website that we just had on the screen there. It's called the Zandari Festival, and check it out. There's also social media as well, right? So Facebook page, Twitter, so you can get more information there. As always, Jongwan, thank you very much for joining us today, and I'll see you at one of those rock concerts this weekend. Okay, now let's take a quick look at some other cultural and sporting events that are taking place as we speak across South Korea.
Good morning. Breezy, but we had a fresh start to the day, but highs will reach to the upper 20s by the afternoon. So it's going to be pretty warm under partly cloudy skies with on and off rain expected for Jeju Island. And slightly warmer than average temperatures will stay with us here in the capital and the rest of central region. But Jeju and southern parts of the country might see showers through Sunday. And for a closer look, Jeju could see 20 to 60 millimeters of rain into Friday, while southern provinces are forecast to see 5 to 40 millimeters of rain tomorrow. But again, more rain is on the way for the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to leave the news and weather for now on this Thursday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to us on Arirang TV, and a reminder that our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time. So until then, goodbye.